This is what I brought to the party.
Ooh, that looks
Oh, I
yummy.
need to go get some.
Cold coffee from 3 hours ago.
Okay.
Go get tea.
I
You
have
got
some
tea.
ice
Well,
cream tea.
It's
It's
me.
mud.
I never had a hard time finding name
I
tags.
never had Madeline in anything. I
Didn't
actually
finish.
have tea. I have tea.
go get tea.
I
You
have
got
some
tea.
ice green tea.
We both realize that we're trying to be as transparent as possible and as much as who we are. And therefore, when we introduce these things, then we should be able to respond immediately and then have the benefit of having a week to be able to ponder it. This is a deliberate cliffhanger for a program, like episode's going to come up next Sunday. And I'm hopeful that you and I will be surprised by how much we have pondered during the week and how our immediate response to something has changed over that time. In which case, then it becomes exciting, I think, for our audience as well to find out whether they changed in the same way. And all of a sudden, we have a conversation going way beyond us. That's what I'm really hoping for.
Hello, Graham.
Oh, it's so good to see your smiling face again.
Welcome back, everyone, to Tea at 3. This week, we have been thinking about what Graham presented last week, which was a boulder falling down and getting in the way, and how do we approach those obstacles. As an example, our current large obstacle being the current global crisis and pandemic.
Well, I know that what you and I are so wanting to do is to ponder for a few days, and which our audience doesn't need to. Come on, audience, this is between Faith and I, but we so want to embrace you. If you want to ponder, then it's thinking deeply about something. So I've been thinking deeply about it, and I got a new idea. See, remember, I was in my car, and I had to stop because this big boulder was in the way. And I had an attitude, which is I could get between the boulder and the cliff. I could put my feet up against it and prayerfully push, knowing that I can't move that thing. It's just too big for me. But God can move it. So, and I don't know how he intends to do that, except that I do believe that he'll do it. And I believe that a few other people could put their feet up against the rock in an attitude of prayerful belief in that, and it will go. Now, that was my idea, and it was very simple. Simple for me. Then I got back into my car again and realized that I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't get angry about the obstacle. And that the obstacle wasn't a virus. The obstacle were the regulations surrounding the virus. Help us to keep other people safe. And to the extent that that becomes irritating, means for me that I'm not much loving those people who are at risk. But if I am loving them, there should be something that quietens me down inside. So what am I going to do until somebody moves the boulder, until God moves the boulder? There's going to be a delay. So I looked at my car and I thought, how can I make my car more efficient, more effective, less dangerous for other people? I got out and I tried the tire pressures. And there were two of my tire pressures which were really low, and I haven't bothered about, who cares? But if I'm going to have a life that does no harm, then I'm going to go over my car to make sure that when it hits the road, it's not going to do anybody any damage. That's what I got out of it. And I'm so excited by that idea. The car is my whole life. The opportunity is look at everything that I'm doing to see whether I can do less harm. And that means you and I have got a whole bunch of things to talk about for a long, long time. There's plenty to do with my car that needs to change. Now I'm thrilled to know what you got as a result of the day's pondering.
Yeah, I really like that way of viewing it, as maybe bringing it back to like making sure that everything is right with yourself before we're going back into community. I think the times that we are in community during this situation are so much more intentional than they used to be, that like they become so much more important
Yes.
in that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's was definitely harder to think about just sitting back. I always feel like I should be doing something to help, and currently I don't know what that is. And in reality, I'm not doing very much. I mean, I am staying home. I'm only like I'm only going out to get groceries every 2 weeks. You know, I'm following those kinds of rules. But there's just constantly this feeling that I should be doing something more to help people.
Do you think that my idea then of looking at life as a whole, you've got this whole life ahead of you. This is the difference between us. You've got the 60 plus years and I've got 10. All right. So I can look at 10 years of life and be excited by what that could be. But my excitement is being lived through you to a degree. So it's what are you going to do to your car driving 60 years into the future? What's that car going to look like? It's a silly thing, but is it going to have plastic bags at the supermarket? Why not take a purse like that to the supermarket? From now on, you are making a positive difference to the world which is coming. I've been telling myself that I'm going to do this every week. And do you know I haven't done it? I've got these special bags. I made a purchase of them. They're all nice colors and they're very robust and they can really work. And I always leave them at home. No. And I'm just not going to take another plastic bag. That's something, it's minuscule, but it's something. Yeah. So is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, in tangible reality, yeah. Most of my bags are already reusable bags. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to use them right now, but we do. We take home paper bags and then we use those as our garbage bags.
Yes.
So.
Well, good. But that's a silly thing that I'm facing, and it's what you're facing that's important. It's how if your car is perfect, if it does no harm to anybody under any circumstances whatsoever, wonderful. And I'm thrilled for you. Mine is not like that. But then I've had a few years on the road, and I can recognize it.
Oh, I in no way think that my car is perfect.
Well, you have an idea for me to ponder for this week.
Yeah, it actually relates quite closely to what you were just talking about. I think with there's a lot of things that I'm anxious about in the future, and having a beautiful, livable planet is definitely one of the big ones.
Okay.
And largely because nature is where I find my peace, and so many other reasons, but I would like the good and healthy nature to stick around for a long foreseeable future. So there are a lot of small and very difficult choices that people can make to help with that, like using reusable bags and not using plastic bags, things like that. These choices can be so simple in reality, but like so ridiculously difficult to actually do. And something that lessens my anxiety about the future is making those difficult decisions on my own. And if I know that I can do that, then I can have hope that in the future, when everybody needs to be doing something like that, that's possible.
Yes.
So one of those for me that I've been doing for a little while is about a year and a half ago, I stopped purchasing beef. And then about 6 months ago, I stopped purchasing all meat entirely. And I don't like not eat meat, but like if it's served to me, I will happily accept it. But if it's my choice, if I'm at the store or at a restaurant, I won't choose meat. And a lot of that is because it has we have such a big focus on it, and it creates, I mean, just cows specifically create a lot of methane that doesn't really help the atmosphere. I'm not saying we need to eliminate cows entirely, but because there's such a focus on it, we have torn down environments and created them into environments that are suitable for cows, and done so much more of that than the balance that the world needs currently.
Yeah.
So if there is salad and there is cows, if we're eating the cows who are eating the salad, then they're eating like 2 years worth of salad for one meal of cow, and we could eat the 2 years worth of salad instead, and then have those 2 more years in a healthy and safe world.
Yes.
And this isn't something that this is something that I've thought about for a long time and tried to do many, many times. A lot of my friends have been vegetarian for a lot longer than me. And there was, I think, so much of a stigma around it being so, like, even 8 or so years ago, maybe less, it was viewed so much more as this like hippie thing
Yes.
to do. And I think it's becoming so much more acceptable and so much more normal, that gives me a lot of hope that that's like a possible thing in the future, that we just can reduce that for the health of the earth. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I have done something of the same thing. I haven't stopped eating meat. I haven't had any red meat apart from lamb. I had that within the last 6 months. I had 1 meal of lamb. But I haven't had beef actually for about 3 years. I have stopped having pork as well, and bacon, by the way. The only meat protein or flesh protein that I have is fish, and also turkey. And there is a turkey breast which comes all wrapped up in a kind of stockinette thing. I think the makers are Butterball, I believe. And it's a round thing. It's about 3 pounds. It's got the most ghastly sauce in it, which I throw out. But I can roast that in an hour and a half. And then that is my source of flesh protein. So I probably have less than 2 ounces a day, because I'm aiming for 7 to 9 servings of fruit and vegetables. And I should reverse that, vegetables and fruit. And I believe if I have that amount, that my immune system is getting what it needs to have for which it was originally designed. I was a plant eating, my whole digestive system is a plant eating system. So if I treat it to good plants, and as fresh as I can get it and as organic as I can get it, then I think I am really going to be less likely to be infected by strange viruses and other things that are floating around, not just today, but in the years which stretch ahead through your lifetime. So I'm absolutely in favor of that. But I also agree with you, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
If you currently sit down to an 8-ounce steak, suddenly cutting that in half and making it a 4-ounce steak is a step forward. But you look down and say, where's the beef? It's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole world is looking to see how it can change what we do now, so that we don't have to do this again in the same kind of crazy way that we've done it this time.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of us has got an opportunity for things like this. I think it's terrific. And I'm going to spend the whole week pondering, taking an even more aggressive approach than I've done already, and trying to say, I'm going to scale down whatever it is, that it was a live animal or even a live fish in my life. And I'm going to improve the quality of the plant food that I have in what I'm eating, so that I'm more interested in the plants than the piece of flesh that's in the middle of them. That I need to be more of an enthusiastic about the plants. Then I'm kind of so like my turkey that I've almost attached myself to that as a way of eating. And I know you're right when you say that. Within 60 years, almost everybody is going to be eating plant food. And we'll move away from the status cattle of today. I think that's true. How wonderful. Good. I shall ponder that deeply. I'm looking forward to it.
No, this is exactly why I wanted to specifically bring this up with you, because I knew that you would have so much more to say about it, having so much experience in like the food world, and like that is more of a default thought for you, thinking about food. Like for me, food is just like, I'm hungry, I'll eat. I'm not really thinking about making it taste really good most of the time. But yeah, having that emphasis on creating plant food that is so much better, it makes that choice so much easier. If you're like, this is my favorite meal and it just so happens to be plant-based,
yeah,
like then you're not even thinking about whether or not you're eating meat.
Now you and Jacob spent some time in Greece, didn't you? On a Greek island, and you worked on a farm there. Am I right? And
yeah.
and did you eat what you grew?
We did, yeah. At the time we were growing vegetables, the season was, we were growing a lot of greens. So we ate a lot of salad. They also had a small chicken farm. So there were a lot of eggs, and they had they had 3 or 4 cows and one, I think they had 3 or 4 pigs too. And so like they would have 1 cow to sustain them for their family for like 6 months or something like that. And then they would have the eggs in the garden. Like everything that we ate came from, because we were on an island, everything we ate came from that island. And it was just like, it felt so much more like the cycle of life rather than buying a package from a store and bringing it home and throwing away the plastic and all that kind of stuff.
Do you know, can I just say a word to your audience, because you're the host and I'm kind of the guest. So at home, look, what Faith has just said and what we've been talking about is not easy. If you eat meat at the present moment, the idea of going to a plant food only diet is just shocking. But the idea of cutting back a bit on it to begin with and see what that looks like is kind of interesting. And I want to just throw an idea into our hearts at the same time that we're going to ponder this. And we're going to ask you at home to ponder this, please, with us, so that next Sunday we can get together and we can actually hear from you about what you are thinking about this issue. So here's what happened to me. When I cut my meat consumption by half, I saved over $720 a year for my little family, all right? That's what the meat cost me, and then it shrunk my budget by $720 in the first year we did this. So we gave away the $720. We actually said we've saved it, so let's share it. There's a world of need out there. Let's find somebody who's really, really at need. We found a couple of orphans in different countries, and we supported an organization which cared for them. And we continue to do that because, you know, once you've made that decision, your budget's always going to be less. So do you just do it for the first year, or do you continue? So it's like paying it forward. That's kind of the idea. We call it the double benefit. Anyway, so that's a thing to think about when you're making your decision about whether to make a change in your just as Faith has suggested. Could that change actually benefit somebody else at the same time? in a world of need at the present moment. Wouldn't that be exciting? So, does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. That's great. Yeah, and like Graham said, this was not at all a quick decision for me. I have been thinking about this and trying to be vegetarian for 6 or 7 years, and have only succeeded in the past 6 months, and that's kind of. So this is a very slow change, and I think if those changes are made slowly, it's so much more normal to me now than it was a year ago to not buy. I didn't even realize that was a year and a half ago when I made that decision to not buy beef. Now I'm not even thinking about the fact that that's part of my life. If these things are made slowly, then they just become normal and can be good for the world. And even especially if you're sending all that extra change out to people who need it.
Lovely, darling. I read a little while ago the CDC, which we all know now as the Center for Disease Control, put out a little statement, and I think the numbers were, I was trying to find it, so I can't be absolutely certain of this, that 37% of US adults had less than 1 serving of fruit and vegetables a day. That's less than a cupful, or a single piece of fruit. Excuse me? And today we see these numbers that we see of our frailty with regard to the virus. And if a person has a compromised immune system, and we think, oh, well, that's because they're taking chemotherapy or something like this, or they're aged and frail and everything else. Excuse me? If you're part of the 37% that has 1 serving of fruit and veg, you are immune. Your immune system is not functioning the way that it should. So that's just like my car. It's like having a dirty windscreen and I could hardly see the road. So I wash the windscreen and I pump up my tires and I'm all ready to go when the obstacle rolls out of the way. And we go again to do less harm, right? I am so excited by this, I can't tell you. I can hardly wait till next week. Tell me, let's all share together one thing that we can ponder. What is this that you want us to ponder in the week ahead? What's important?
Yeah, I think the decision to become vegetarian for me was one of those small but oh so difficult decisions that I think will be necessary in the future. And if I can make that decision for myself, I can feel like it's possible for other people to make that decision in the future. And even though I am just a drop in the bucket, if there's a big rainstorm somewhere, there'll be floods, and that will make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
So we'll be pondering this specifically, the idea of reducing meat consumption and maybe increasing plant consumption, but also other small but also difficult decisions that you can make, that we can make in our own lives, that will make a positive impact in the world. We're fine-tuning our own cars to make sure when the obstacle's gone, we're ready to go.
Lovely. Can't wait.
Yeah, so we'll think about that this week, and we'll get back to you next week. Feel free to leave comments, and I'll make sure to include those in our conversation next week. Again, this is Tea at 3. I'm Faith Schmidt. This is Graham Kerr, and we'll see you next week.
God bless you, darling.
You too.